You to our other panelists who are going to be joining us for this discussion. Today we are very happy to have with us the head of pediatry and the group medical director of Apollo Hospitals, Dr. Sybil. He's written a book called Is Your Child Ready to Face the World? And it's a testament to how you can effectively basically communicate with your children to prepare them to face the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Anupam Sybil. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody you are very familiar with, somebody you've watched a lot of times, the beautiful model, actress, mother to an 11-year-old son, and author of The Modern Gurukul, My Experiments with Parenting, which is a book that provides all the achievement and challenges of a first-time mother. Put your hands together for Sonali Bendre. Welcome, Sonali. Looking forward to what you have to say. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, on the panel, Dr. Indu Shahani, the Dean of HR College of Commerce and Economics in Mumbai. And honestly, when it comes to education, Dr. Shahani he needs no introduction. We've all heard of her and what she has to say about education. She has over 3 decades of teaching experience, and she's played a pivotal role in nurturing future leaders. Please put your hands together for Dr. Indu Shahani. We also have with us Ms. Rupal Patel, who is a child psychologist and she's a parenting expert. She's conducted more than 500 workshops and seminars on parenting all over the country, and I'm sure we all want to know what she has to say today. Please welcome Dr. Rupal Patel. Right, so we are going to be, let me just tell you, we're going to be having, we'll have a panel discussion, but before that, since everyone is so eminent and, they all have their own viewpoints, it'd be nice to hear what they have to say individually. So I'd really like to request, them to give like an opening introduction to what their take is, so then we can take it forward. So Dr. Sybil, we'd like to start with you, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mini, Induji, Sonali, Priya, Rupal, the amazing HUL team that's put together this event, friends from the media. It's a privilege to be here this morning. I'd like to thank the team for inviting me. Yeah, I've been a pediatrician for more than 20 years, and every day I spend a lot of time interacting with moms and dads, and I invariably ask them this question: are you stressed being a parent? And the answer is always yes. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be an actress, you could be a journalist, you could be head of a brand, you could be a cricket star. The answer is always yes, because when you go home, you are just mom or dad, nothing more, nothing less. I want to tell you this little story. When the announcement of President Obama being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize was made, his daughter Maria went up to him and said, "Daddy, you've just won the Nobel Peace Prize, and it's Bo's birthday today." Bo, incidentally, is the dog the president had gifted his daughters. And then Shasha, the younger one, walks in and she says, "Daddy, plus we have a 3-day weekend coming up. So you could be the President of the United States of America and be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, but for your daughters, you're just daddy, and they want to discuss the important event for the day." For a child to be a child comes naturally, but for an adult to become a parent, it's quite another story. There's so many different questions that bother a parent. Will my child learn to distinguish the good from the bad? Make strong relationships? Will my child live up to the genetic potential with which he or she is born? And a whole lot of worrying questions, but deep down there's just one sentiment, and that is, will I fail in my duty to prepare my child to face the world? And that's a worry that every parent has. So how do you prepare a child? Well, you can talk to them, it's great to talk, but how do you communicate with a generation that has absolutely no time for you? They have so many gadgets, extracurricular activities, academics, so on and so forth. They don't even want to listen, forget hearing. We can give them books to read. Yeah, there's some wonderful books that are available. But if we really look at books and data that has come out, about 50% of kids in the UK prefer watching television to reading books. And what is worrying is that 17% were actually embarrassed if their friends saw them reading a book. So books are really not very popular anymore. We can talk about our own experience. Each one of us has learned so much. We made mistakes we don't want our children to repeat. But then we must realize that the moment you start a conversation and say, in my experience, the child says this is a sermon, and the child doesn't want to hear, because we must remember what Charles Wadworth has said, that by the time a man realizes that his father was probably right, he usually has a son who thinks he's wrong. So your own experience doesn't really gel very well. And that's really what got me thinking and got me to write this book called Is Your Child Ready to Face the World? And it really is a simple book that talks about how do you communicate with this generation which is very different, that likes to debate and question. And in the book I describe a very simple technique that I developed looking at other parents, looking at relatives, and what we did with our son. And very simple, get 15-20 minutes with the child when he wants that time. It can't be structured, it can't be a fixed day of the week, because then it becomes a scheduled activity which children don't like. And what we did was we would get Devanga's son to talk about something that was bothering him or something that was of interest, something that had happened in school, and then one would weave a story around it and try and get his interest and usually touch on a value. Because at the end of the day, as parents, what we want is to instill some value. So just to give you a couple of examples, and I don't know if you have children here who want smartphones. It's a huge problem these days. And every year when a new smartphone model comes out, it's a big problem. And we had the similar problem when a new iPhone came out and Devang said, you know, Dad, it's just awesome. Just look at the feel, look at the quality, look at the technology. I'm going to be super smart. At the click of a button, I can get all the information from Google. I'm going to be a smart kid. I want an iPhone. So a real passionate case to buy an iPhone. And I said, well, this is a perfect time to talk about Steve Jobs. You know, the highs and lows. After all, imagine dropping out of college, forming a company, $2 billion, more millionaires ever in history, being thrown out of that company, coming back and heading it 10 years later and making the most valuable company. So it's about determination. We were watching the soccer World Cup inaugural ceremony, and we were seeing Shakira perform. And suddenly the camera focused on Nelson Mandela, and I said, wow, this is a great opportunity to talk about forgiveness. There isn't a better example of forgiveness than Nelson Mandela. Imagine spending 27 years in prison, getting out of prison, becoming the president, and inviting the public prosecutor who asked for the death penalty for you for lunch. Imagine inviting the prison warder for your inauguration. Can there be a better example of forgiveness? So we had this discussion. We went and saw this movie called Invictus, which is about Mandela and Springboks, and then we read a lot. It's extremely important that we instill some important values in children, especially this generation. You see, we're looking at nuclear families, we're looking at kids who have this entitlement. They believe they need everything because it's their right. They don't really have to work for it. They kind of ignore the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people in their neighborhood, thousands of kids who don't have that. You know, in my clinic, I keep candies on my desk. And boys, I'm waiting for the day when a boy will ask for an extra candy. But a girl will always ask for a candy for her sister or for a brother. So all those who have boys need to remember that they need to work really hard in instilling this concept of giving and sharing. That's the way boys are. I mean, it's just harder for them. But there are so many of these stories that I think we need to tell our children. But do this in a fashion that it's not really teaching. So it's really having a discussion, because a two-way communication is extremely important. And we must never forget when we talk about giving and sharing that children observe very keenly. Their ears hear and their brain processes. And this then gets deeply ingrained in their mind. And sometimes a child will behave 15 years later, when faced with a similar situation, how he'd seen his mom or dad behave. This is something that parents should never forget. And in fact, Mark Patterson had said, when God improves your financial situation, don't raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving. Now, unless parents themselves believe in giving, it's very hard for a child to understand that concept. And whenever a child gives something small, you know, parting with a toy that is no longer of any interest, or a book or a puzzle, we need to encourage that child, because encouragement has a very positive impact on memory. It conditions your mind to do that behavior again and again, because all of us crave for recognition. And when you recognize a child for doing something that's positive, that's good, something like giving, it has a very positive reinforcement. And let me tell you medically the benefits of giving. So if you look at functional MRI scans that can actually tell you about activation of different parts of the brain with certain activities. So if you are given money, a particular part of the brain gets activated. But if you give out that money, that part of the brain lights up even more. So it's actually good. Giving improves serotonin, which helps decrease anxiety, decrease depression. So there are medical reasons also why giving is extremely important. And I think this program that has been started today, which will energize parents to really talk about values, talk about sharing, talk about giving, is really something that is needed at this point in time, because kids are becoming more and more materialistic, because the world is becoming materialistic, and it's really not their fault. They see what they see around and then incorporate that in their lives. So that's all that I have to say in my opening remarks. But one parting comment is that children do not remember what you teach them, they remember who you are. And that's something that every parent must always remember.
Nice. Thank you, Dr. Sybil, for that. We'll have a lot more questions and pick your brains about after this. But I'd like to now ask Sonali if she would step up and give us a few words of wisdom about her book, about what she feels about parenting. You want to sit into it? You can sit into it. There's no issue.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, nice to see you all here. And just a couple of things that I would like to say. First of all, say thank you for this initiative to HUL, because you know this is important. Debates like this are important, and I really feel that what is happening now is that debates are so they're not normal anymore. People are not talking and having a conversation. We are all shouting at each other. We are all fighting with each other, and there's just so much aggression about everything. And which I suppose is the natural way of things, with you know, more people, resources being less, everybody fighting for their small resources. We are doing what is most natural to do. So I think the need for, and the of the hour, need of the day is to tone down that aggression, to understand compassion, to reach inside ourselves and to reach to that compassion, which is a very part of the human nature. Compassion is something which I feel is so uniquely human. I mean, animals live their life, they do that in jungle, they get on with it, it's wildlife. They are not feeling compassion beyond the point for the prey that they kill and eat, because that's their need. It's humans who need that but will still feel compassion, but we also overdo that need. So it is time for us to reach that in ourselves and teach our kids that. I feel somewhere in this rat race that we are running, we are all forgetting the simple thing like compassion and teaching that to our children. So for me, that was one of the things that was a major thinking point when I had a child, and when I started thinking about what I need to do, what is it that I want to do, what do I want to give to my child. And there was this whole debate that was going on in me. What is this one thing? Because see, there are a lot of things that we want to give our children. We all need to come down to that one thing that I desperately want him to have, without which I don't want my child to grow up. And when you actually come down to everything between the thousands and lakhs of things that you want your child to have, I came to one thing, and that was I wanted my child to grow up knowing compassion for everything and everybody. And as long as he can feel that, he can be a better human being, he'll have the values that we talk about. The key word for me was compassion. And that's where the book, The Modern Gurukul, came about, where the problem I realized was that, you know, when I went back into understanding how were we being brought up, what was the Gurukul system, what was happening in it. So yes, it is the modern Gurukul because it talks about how we apply it today. Obviously, we are not going to the jungles, we don't even have them anymore, so we are not sending our children away to be educated in a Gurukul. So the point being, we need to bring that home. What was that one thing that is missing? They were teaching them arts and culture and sciences and maths, and everything was happening. But there was also spiritual learning that was happening. There was a teacher who was leading a model life which the children were following, which is missing. And it's not fair to expect our teachers to be doing that. They're doing a job, they're getting paid a salary. It's what we need to do and bring that home. The Gurukul needs to come home. The spirituality, the compassion needs to be taught at home. Everything cannot be outsourced to the school and we put that, oh, the school is not teaching. We are supposed to do that. Home is the first school. And that's where the book came about. That's where this whole talking point came about for me. And so when you came up with this idea, and if you're going to activate this, and with all of you opinion makers, as Minnie said it, being here, it's very, very important that we at least start talking about these simple things which are actually the most important things in life. So I hope we have a good discussion here today. It's a really great panel and I think it's an honor to be here. And I'm really enjoying and happy that I'm a part of this discussion, which means so much to me. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sonali. We'll discuss a little bit more about what's in your book a bit later. But Dr. Shahani, you of course are the ultimate word. We really want to hear what you have to say.
Very good afternoon and thank you so much, Priya. I can't believe that I'm sitting here while an examination is going on in my college, but I think this is as important as an examination that's going on in the college. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you 3 quick things, but before that, let me tell you what happened this morning, because that's live from the college. We have these examinations going on, and then we have re-examinations going on for students who have not been attending, or for students who are sports or have been ill and so on. And we follow up with these students to see that they must attend because the exam is very important, because without that they cannot go ahead. So this morning I was told that they've not been able to contact 2 students throughout in the last 1 month. So finally they've been able to contact the father of one of the students and he will see me. So I said, okay, I'll see him before coming here. The exam was starting at 11 o'clock. So I met him at 9:30 and I said to him, I said, you know, your son hasn't been coming to the college. And then he looks around and he says, no, has he not been coming to the college? I said, no, he's not been coming to the college. So he said, but he leaves home and he comes. So I said, I'm sorry, but here are the attendance records and today is the exam. If he's not here, he doesn't graduate. He said, really? I said, when, can I ask you just one question? When was it last you met your son? And he said, you know, I've been traveling and I came back last night, so I really don't know, but let me WhatsApp him, all right? So, what does that mean? As Sonali said, does the principal of the college, the teachers of the college have to take up the parenting? Do we have to become parents? I said, sir, we've tried all his WhatsApps, we've tried all his phone numbers, we've all tried all his friends, we've tried, but we have not been able to get through. And the father couldn't also get through, so he could not sit for the exam. What's going wrong? And I have 7,000 of these students every year, but I've been noticing some things which I thought I'd share with you. Number one, I do a large number of interviews in the college with students coming in with their parents, and these are not interviews just because they've not been attending, but these are interviews when they are entering my college. I want to see what kind of students am I getting, so I do random interviews. Let me tell you how I've been able to do a study, and maybe both of you who are writing these great books can take this study over and write about it. When the young man or a young woman enters my room with their parents, I started noticing the behavior of the young students and started making my own study, which I didn't realize I was able to make that out in 5-7 minutes. But one of the generalizations that I've been able to come up with is students who walked in and waited for their parents to sit, who had the decency not to talk while their parents are talking, to talk in a gentle manner, very respectful, very confident, very balanced. And I asked them one question: do you live with your grandparents? And 75% of the time I received the answer, yes. Has the influence of your grandparents been there? So many times they say, we don't live with our grandparents, but he spends his Sunday with Nani and one Saturday with Dadi. All right? I've been told this. I think we have to understand we need the return of the joint family. We need the return of the influence of the grandparents. I see that in my own son today, who it's a great feeling for me to work for him today. He's setting up 3 new institutions after I've been for 3 decades in higher education, to see that he's there because the influence of the Nani and the Dadi. I would have been in charge of university exams. 7 o'clock I would need to open that cupboard where all my papers were kept, and the university students, 89,000 students appear in commerce, and I would have that key, and this young boy, because of my anxiety, would get up with fever, because my anxiety that I have an exam and I have to take care, and that would happen. And I'd ring up my mother and she'd say, don't worry, at 5:30 in the morning I'd ring her up, he's got high fever, and she would say, when I'm, it's so sad when I'm sitting in the canteen and I'm seeing children around, the plate of dosa comes to them or this comes to them. It's so individualistic. They never care to see if the next person has still got his meal or not, and so on. I think the sharing and caring comes from, it's not just sharing and caring. Please remember, I'm sure Priya will understand that today corporates are talking about teamwork. If you're a team player, then you're good. These are the leadership qualities that we try to put them through, but they all start when you're young. And about sharing and caring, let me again finally tell you a context, because it's about parenting and about my son. When I would leave and we would go out in the night, my husband and I would say to this thing, Baba, bye-bye, and Shantabai, take care of my Baba. My mother said, change the context. Tell him, and he was 3-year-old, 2-year-old, Baba, take care of Shantabai. And the context changed. The sharing and caring just happened. It just was natural that he didn't come first in anyone's life, somebody else did. And I think today these values are helping him to create these great schools.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shami. We pick your brains about all the things that you said. As a parent also, my curiosity is like at its peak right now. But we cannot do without hearing what, Ms. Rupal Patel has to tell us. So please do join us on the dais.
Good afternoon. It's when you're serving dinner, yes, if you're serving dinner and having a conversation, that's a wonderful thing because you're actually bonding in that conversation. But if I'm just meeting out rules and I'm saying do this, do that, do this, do that, I might be around my child the entire day. I might not even be working. But if I'm going to be around just doing that, I'm not actually building that bond. And so very, very important is to build that bond. Another thing I wanted to touch upon was, when we want to inculcate values, if I am not clear about the values myself, how am I going to inculcate them? So I need to have clarity, what are the values I want to inculcate? I might have a certain list, and again, as I said, everybody's will be different. There are certain which are very common, which everybody would want their kids to have, but again, that cannot be said that this is what is the right way or the wrong way, because it's your way, because it's what you want for your child, what you want for your family. But if I'm not clear, it'll be very difficult. I'll lose out all the teachable moments. For example, if I want to teach my child gratitude, but somebody has given a child a gift, and if I'm not aware that I want to teach gratitude, I will not remember to encourage my child to send a thank you note or say thank you in some way. Similarly, I might have two values, but I don't know which one is a priority. I might want my child to be very independent, and at the same time, I want a very neat house. My house has to be very clean. Now, if I'm going to teach independence to a 3-year-old, and when he starts with eating food on your own, so if I'm going to start, that child is going to eat food, there is going to be a huge mess. So your neatness.
Thanks, Rupal. I think this time we attended one of your workshops as well. So basically, it's very interesting. Everyone's put together so many different perspectives on parenting, but I think all of us agree on the one basic thing, that it is important to look at values as a core teaching as a parent, a core responsibility really, if I may say so. Dr. Sibal, I just wanted to ask you, because you've done so much of, you deal with children all the time. Do you really think that we're facing a real issue of us, as a society being a little depleted on the value imbibing front? Or do you think because everyone's, into technology and everyone's spending much more time away from their parents, dealing with, what they have to do, the exposure that they're faced with, do you think that values have actually taken a back seat?
I think many they have actually, and it's really sad. As a doctor, I see a lot of infections, viral, bacterial, fungal. But there's this new infection that I see, I call it the P virus. It's the perfection virus. It has afflicted large amounts of our population. It's like you want the perfect partner, so that's why marriages break. You want the perfect progeny. Now, with progeny, it's really difficult You can't really change. You can't tell your best friend, I like your 5-year-old, will you take mine and give me yours? It doesn't work like that. So what do? We try and make them perfect. And in this perfectionist pursuit, we make life miserable for them. It's only about success. You have to be number one in taekwondo, number one in English. You also have to be good at piano or ballet or what have you. So I see 7-year-olds who are burning out. You know, they're just so exhausted. They actually come and they say, I'm so tired, I finished school, I have to this class, that class, 3 times a week, this, 2 times a week, this. And then it's not just about attending, it's about performing well. You know, just attending is not good enough, you have to win. So what's happening is there's too much focus on achievement, on success, and we tend to forget that success is never permanent. Anyone who's very successful will also fail, fall, and then must have the resilience to stand up. And for that you need values. And values were so beautifully ingrained in our culture. Induji just talked about the beauty of grandparents, but the reality is that we live in nuclear families. Grandparents are seen occasionally, holidays, and of course we also have single parents. So it's very, very hard on the parent, but I think extremely important, hard that it might be, that we don't lose sight of instilling these values, because otherwise we'll raise a generation that is really not going to realize what happens when you fail, because you are going to fail.
In fact, that's a very interesting point. You know, as parents, we're trying to raise the perfect children, and I think Dr. Shani, I would really like to, you must have seen so many parents who are trying to live their dreams to their children. What you couldn't achieve, you want your child to do, you couldn't sing, so your child must sing, and so on and so forth. Do you also come across, children who are just carrying their parents' dreams and aspirations on their shoulders?
I think at the time when they come into the college, it's much more the aspirations of what they're going to do after college, which is bothering them. And very often the parents say, but when he finishes this 3 years, will he get a placement in this company, or will he be able to do this? And I keep telling them, let him enjoy his college life first. Let him first get in, and in those 3 years discover for himself what he's good at. Not every child, a doctor's child is not always doctor, right? Dr. You would
tell me it's not true, Dr. Sippal. Tell me you're not pushing Devang into being a doctor.
He's actually followed commerce. But very interesting about
this.
Good.
We should give a round of applause just for that. And
I must say that my son did pharmacy, so we are exchanging our two sons.
No, but it's very interesting. I'm sorry if I might be what you said about doctors, kids being doctors. I was addressing a convention of 600 school teachers the other day, and most of them were parents. And one of them said, as a teacher, now this is really important because you're a teacher and a parent, and she said, I think my daughter wants to become a doctor, and she's in class 12 and she's taking all these coaching exams, and your doctor advised me and all. I said, how do you know she wants to do medicine? She said, no, when she was 3 years old, we'd given her a doctor's set and she played with it a lot. So I said she might have played with anything. You've just conditioned her mind over the years that doctors are great. It's a very noble profession. So, for 15 years you've conditioned your child without really realizing that the child wants maybe to be a VJ, or a child wants to just play sports or write. So this is a big problem about dreams. And I must add here that this is an Indian thing. Mera bacha mere khandan ka naam roshan karega. Why? Why?
He has his own dreams.
Own dreams. Why should they, relive or, live out my dreams? They have their own dreams.
But I think as parents we need to respect that first. And Rupal, I just come briefly to you. I don't know, Sonali, if you've also come across this term, since we have children all turning 12 and you as well. This term called momzillas, okay? Moms who behave like Godzilla. There's a term called momzillas that I've come across, where moms are just like Dr. Sippal said, burning out their children by trying to, ostensibly just to give them exposure to everything and make them believe, that they will find their groove once you expose them to it. How important is exposure to everything versus let the child take his normal course, his or her normal course?
I would think exposure is good if it's done in limits, but if you're going to try to just keep exposing them to everything, you're going to actually become like a jack of all trades and a master of none. So you need to expose them maybe to a certain sport, to music, and those are the only two things which you will need to actually encourage them. I won't say push them, because those things take long to master. So for your child, if you feel they're really good and they're enjoying, because it's the same thing again and again, that boredom might set in. But with all the other activities which they do, you will know very clearly whether the child is interested in that. I mean, you can't expect, like you said, everyone to do everything. I mean, if Sachin Tendulkar didn't do cricket and he started painting, probably you wouldn't have reached everywhere, I mean, the levels which he reaches to. So the point is, if I'm good in a particular field, I should nurture that in my child rather than wanting, it's more about, I think, parents wanting to say my child does this.
I think so.
Which is why when they're
epidemic.
Can I want to come into that? Because when you say exposure to everything, it is important, and like you say that everything we talk about, there's no formula. So every child is different, every parent is different, every family is different. So everybody's needs, even for values, like you said, are different. What is value, what Dr. Rupal said, what are the values and how do you see them? So in the same way with exposure also, you need to expose them, everybody agrees with it. But how do you understand that what is too much exposure and what is too little exposure? Now what is the formula? There is no formula. So what the point is to spend that time with the child and to see, is the child getting bored with it? Is it stressing the child out? That's why the importance of those 15 minutes of conversation or spending time where you're doing nothing. It could be like, for me, it's getting my son, putting him to bed in the night. A lot of people tell me he's 10-year-old, he should be sleeping on his own by now. Why does he need his mother to come in? But I think it's the beautiful time when he reads his book. I come and we discuss them. And with boys who don't share as much, I find that that's the time when he's sleepy, he's a little vulnerable when he shares. So honestly, he might be ready to sleep on his own, but I don't want to give up that time because that's the only time when I kind of discover what is it that he really wants. So yes, every year he's trying something new. So we came to a point where we discussed that, listen, so this year if you've chosen tennis, we stick to it for this whole year. Suddenly in mid-year he wanted cricket. I said, now next year you will take cricket and then you will stick to it for a year. So there's a time limit where you actually, honestly, without missing the classes, give it an honest try it out and then come back and say that, okay, fine, this is what I want to do, this is not what I'm enjoying doing. And he's 10 years old. I think till about 13 or 14, I think he's okay if he keeps looking at things and discovering things. And like you pointed out.
But I think the point is, before you come in, Dr. Shani, I know you agree with me, but I think the point is also to the debate between having them cop out on something because it's pressurizing them or continuing with it to show them the resilience and stability that you also need in your life.
That's when you will figure out, is your child opting out of it because he's not enjoying it, or is he opting out of it because he's feeling too much pressure, or he's not liking the group of people he is with, or sometimes it could be he's not enjoying the teacher or the coach, My sister was in Amsterdam, her twins, and when she took them to a music school, and they said, I want my daughter to learn this, and they said no. The first few days, there were all the instruments there. The kids were just allowed to spend time with all the instruments. Her son said, I'm not interested in any. Daughter chose one instrument eventually and took to it, and then 2 days later chose another. But there was a certain amount of period of time that was kept for the children to figure out and just play around with all the instruments and figure out what is it that they are liking. Because eventually that instrument should be the joy. Like for example, my son loves the drums and he decided that he wants to play the drums and whatever. But it's not about what are you learning in it and what is that. What I tell him is that be it the sport, be it whatever you choose to do in life, what I tell him is that the sport, the music has to be your stress buster. I'm not telling him that has to be your career. So that if he chooses that's his choice. But if you tell them that this has to be something that, when you're working very hard and you want a break, you can go and play your own music. This has to be something that you enjoy.
And you're doing it because of that.
That's the most important.
What I wanted to say here was that, at the end of the 3 years when they come into college, students, and at the end of 3 years, they need to get a hall ticket signed by the principal of the college so that they can sit for the examination. And that's the time when I meet about 1,000 students because they're going to be graduating. And I ask every student, what are you going to do? Every student, okay? I spend a lot of time on that one. I still find, which is a sorry state of affairs, is that 50% of the students haven't still figured out what they want to do, even when they are now 20 or 21. So I think somewhere during their growing up years, we, as the point that she made and the point you made, is we have to learn to make the child focus a little more on whatever he wants to do But remember, focus is very important.
Just to play devil's advocate, what's wrong with not finding your focus early on? I just feel the earlier you find your focus, the earlier the burnout.
When you finished your 3rd year of your BCom, you don't know whether you're going to go for further studies or which just goes to show you at 21, if you're not, at 21 people are doing such different things. You do expect that they would at least know what they want to do. I'm not sure what I want to do.
But if I might just come in on that, I mean, what Induji said is 21, 22 is really a mature age. But what we do in India is the other extreme. We expect a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to figure out what they want in life. I was like horrified to learn that now we have coaching classes in class 8, 9 and 10 for IIT. It used to be 11 and 12. Class 7, 8, 9, can you imagine? I mean, the kid is being exposed to science for the first time and he's like priming himself 5 years down the road to sit for an IIT GE. I
think it's horrible enough that all of summer vacations people go for tuitions. I mean, I just think that's just the most horrible thing. You know, coming back to you, Priya, obviously Ready for Life is something that the company's thought about. I just wanted to know, what is it? What were the essential values that you thought are missing? Of course, we've had our experts tell us about what they think are most important. But I'm sure there was a survey done, and what you felt, about that.
So, we've actually done a lot of research on the subject, and what we realized as we did research is some of the things that are becoming increasingly important. I think the first is this whole space of learning to share, because I think what's happening is with the materialistic society in which we live, I think just the simple act, and I love what Dr. Sibyl said, that it's actually medical, and that learning to share actually does affect the way you are as a human being. So I think there's sharing which is very critical. The other thing that's changing is the world's becoming more complex, and I think this whole space we discuss of the world is volatile and the world is changing very fast. You can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow, and therefore you need resilience. And I think the other thing that we're learning is resilience, or just ability to stand and face odds, because the world is going to have odds. It's not going to always be up. There's going to be up and there's going to be down. And that moments in which life isn't the way that you charted out. Everyone wants their child to have this dream life which is always perfect, but it isn't. And there are these moments which are not the way it should be. So resilience and teaching a child to be resilient in the face of odds is another very important value. And the third is just simple things like ingenuity, which is really saying that, how does a child learn to manage in this world which, you need to just be on your feet and make the most of a difficult situation or a great situation. It could even be an opportunity that knocks your way, but really becoming ingenious and learning ingenuity. So these are some of the spaces through research which have emerged as very powerful.
How about tolerance? Not a very nice word at the moment to use, Dr. Sibyl. How about tolerance? Because it really cuts across all values, saying, whether it's, in your grandparents or with whoever is not following, your flow of thought, etc. What about tolerance as a value?
I think
you're just so quick to react to everything.
Absolutely. I think there are 2 or 3 virtues that really come together. One is about accepting another person's viewpoint, which we are seeing that people are becoming very rigid, this way or the highway, and that's really something they see at home, and then they take that to the school and they see that in society. The other thing is that we sometimes don't encourage or accept the fact that we all have imperfections and that we will all make mistakes. In some aspects we are fine, we put a child on a cycle, we know he's going to fall. If he doesn't fall, he never learn how to ride a cycle. But for many other things, we believe that things have to be done in a particular fashion, and when a child chooses another way of doing it and he fails, it's perceived very wrongly, and that then makes the others believe that no, this is not the right way of doing things, there's only one way. So that really leads into this whole thing of lack of acceptance for another viewpoint. And Sonali very nicely writes in her book that you have to be liberated. You have to have this choice, you have to reason, you have to debate, and that's something that is extremely important, and we're not seeing this. And the other element that I'm seeing increasingly in school kids is lack of forgiveness. When kids are going to be obnoxious, there are some kids who are going to be obnoxious in class, and today with the body image problems that we have with boys and girls, if you were like 500 grams more than what your ideal weight is, you're fat. And that leads to a lot of peer pressure and people are very unforgiving when somebody says something, and that's another big problem that we are seeing. And so then you have fights and lots of angry arguments. So in this volatile world that we live in, some of these are also very, very important.
Like I said, Minnie, compassion. Yeah, it's the
It's
moment
down
you
to
feel
just compassion.
compassion for the other person, you're going to tolerate, you're going to look at the other person's point of view, and you are going to look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
So that is one key thing, and like you said that, the problem I face a lot of times when I tell my son is, he say, Mama, you tell me that I should put myself in the other person's shoes, like we say, and understand and feel compassion, but nobody else is feeling. So, like you were pointing out, where does he become a doormat and he starts getting bullied because he's trying to be compassionate, and where does he become strong and say that no, this is what I believe in and what you're doing is wrong, and have the confidence.
Also, I think
That
yeah.
thin line is going to come only from the parent or from the home, from the parent.
Also, everyone needs to understand that being compassionate and having empathy doesn't make you soft. It's like you get, my son often says, I stuck out for this guy who was getting bullied and everybody thinks I'm soft. Being sensitive is really not regarded as cool. It means that you're going easy on people. I just wanted to know, Rupal mentioned a very interesting point about loyalty versus, I'm not sure whether it was Dr. Shani or you, well, loyalty versus honesty. If somebody, if somebody gets, if somebody's cheated in class, are you going to snitch on your friend, or are you going to go the honest route? As a parent, I've always debated and sat the line on, do you snitch on your friend, do you hang in there, or do you tell the truth? What would you recommend really?
See, like all the qualities which you spoke about, and I think even to have compassion, you need courage. So whether you're going to be honest or you're going to snitch, you need courage to do both. So if I have that courage, and I do understand whether, if I'm going to complain about my friend, the only reason I should do it is so that I want that friend to improve or to grow in their life. So that's where compassion will come in. So I will know in my heart whether I'm doing it actually out of compassion, or am I doing it just to put that person down? And that will be the fine line between the two.
This thing about soft, Gandhiji put it beautifully. You know what he said? That the weak can never forgive. It's an attribute of the strong.
Very beautiful. So, I just wanted to say that a lot of this that you're saying, you're talking about your own children and the experience with this. Let me tell you, when you're dealing with other people's children, and when you're in the class, and there are certain experiments which we've done which have worked very well to bring out everything that you've said. The class has to give in submissions, right? There is project work given or some work given to the students, and the students have to give in the submissions. Now we made it mandatory that 10 marks in that whole submission, if it's a 50-mark thing, giving a major amount of marks to that. Major amount of marks are for the class doesn't get those marks if even one person doesn't give the submission.
That's very smart.
Okay, so the onus is on the students to see that they are able to bring their friends to do it in time so that the whole class gets the marks. And at the end of it, they cannot hit that person or hit that child because they're losing that. So they work in every way. They go to that person's house to help him out to do that submission in time. They take on the responsibility for the whole class. Otherwise, those 10 marks are not given to the whole class. So put the onus on, they always say, put the onus, responsibility of learning on the learner.
That's the only thing that probably make them more independent. I think 3 out of 5 of you had mentioned that, and we all agree that values have to be imbibed, they cannot be taught, which basically boils down to the fact that to raise a nice person, you have to be the nice person, and you can only, lead by example. So, but it's not an equal world, and all of us are not so nice. Priya, how do you think, one can tackle that, considering, you can't really say, okay, on paper, I'm going to teach value number 3 today. So how do parents deal with this? You're a mom of a 12-year-old, how do you deal with that?
So I think it is a challenge, because I'm saying it would be very inauthentic for all of us to suddenly say that we are perfect people, because I think we are not perfect either. So I think, but one of the things you can do is hopefully give them experiences which are diverse. And I think if you can just generate experiences and life experiences with others around you, which are diverse, then you can help to imbibe some of those values through experience. And I think this is where the whole thing about experiencing things, there are so many, there's a famous saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think the village around us is our community, the village around us is the society in which we live. And can we create those societal experiences which help us imbibe those values, some of which we may be imbibing along with the children. And I think that's really the only thing that...
learn as you go with them, for them. Rupal, tell me, do you get cases of, you do a lot of workshops, etc. Do you get cases of...
Well, what you said about elite school would be something that would be said that my son goes to the so-called elite school.
And so does mine, but I'm always grappling about it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of times when there's a lot of discussion on it, and I would like to, there was a question I asked myself. What did my parents do? When they sent me to the school, they sent me to the best school that they could send me to. So as a parent, I need to provide the best thing that I can provide to the child. Now that it's our duty also while providing it to tell or make the child understand that it's a privilege and everybody doesn't have it. Now there are various ways that it can be done. In Ranveer's school, now as he will go into MYP, there's social services, a very strong message which has marks for it. So they have to do projects, they have to come up with projects where they're giving back to the society. So the school is doing its bit. From my side, the other thing that happens is that be it your help or people who work with you, your employees and people who help you with your day-to-day living, their children. So there are things when he knows that this is extra. There are these many gifts that have come extra because we all have those extravagant birthday parties, how much ever you try to tone it down. One is on the birthday, you go to the orphanage, you start learning to give. And more than anything else, you start learning to give at home. So in that, these are the gifts that have come. He starts keeping the gifts aside, that this goes to this, and everybody, the help in the house is called Bhaiya, Didi. There is no, this thing. So he keeps it aside for this Bhaiya's son, this Didi's child, the extra pencils, the notebooks. Wastage is never encouraged. Like now today, the new thing is that are you having a shower or are you having a bucket bath? That can be a big discussion, but a child needs to understand that there are people dying and killing themselves because there's a drought in the city. You're not going to be wasting the water. So he is going to an elite school, no doubt, but he needs to understand that this is the privilege he is getting, and this privilege also means that you have to give this privilege back in your own small way. So in between, his friend's mother works in a really lovely organization where you have to give it time, where you take on these children, which is called the Angel Express, and you give the time and you teach those children. You teach them English, which the normal government schools they're not very strong with, or help them with subjects that, because you had the education, you can teach them that. And I have my friends' children who are 12 and 13 who go there and teach these children, younger children. They help them with their English, they help them with their other, whatever subjects they're having difficulty with. They spend time and they're teaching them. And that's the way I think that this topic went back.
I want to take on from where she's just said. I think the schools and colleges can do a lot in this. And they've got medical insurance. Now
Dr. Sipal, all of us are so dogged, they're not going to let you go. They're like,
Absolutely.
no, why should I do this? You tell me the logic behind it. And you're like, I don't have time to tell you the logic.
Well,
but you just have to understand.
It's very
it doesn't
interesting
work
how
anymore.
someone who's a granddad, Mr. Bachchan, wrote the foreword for my book, and he writes and he says you need to give them roots and you need to give them wings.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful, So you have to be a parent and you also have to be a friend.
Sonali's, from her world, we should say that you have to play a double role. You have to be also stern and you have to tell your child when he's wrong and he needs to be told. I'm sorry, this whole thing about I'm only a friend to my thing doesn't work. I must say, and it doesn't work even. Today I think my students respect me because they know when I'm going to tell them something, it is in their interest. I think that double role has to be there. When my eyebrows start twitching, my son knows that it's time, he can't take any more.
That's it. Rupal, any last words on this fine line about
I would actually think respect plays a very crucial role in that, and
Who are not parents who have been children, and I think we have equal amount of questions about the parenting issue.
You have a question? Sure.
Can you hear me? Okay. I don't have, I'm not posing this question to anyone in particular, but I have a 4-year-old and I have a 3-month-old. And I'm constantly trying to find the balance. Like my 4-year-old comes up to me and says, "Mama, you're my best friend." But the thing is, when I have to reprimand him, like Minnie said, we're all read somewhere that you said that at the end of the day, moms have to be the bad witches. We're like, clean this up, do that, get into bed, do that, do that. So he looks up at me in a time when I'm stressed because my 3-month-old is crying and I'm like trying to get him to bed. He's like, "Why are you always yelling at me? Why are you always angry at me? Be happy with me." So how do you walk that thin line? How do you say you need to be disciplined, but do it in a nice way, please? How do you put that? How do moms do that? Because dads sure don't want to walk that line.
Rupal, you want to answer that?
So,
With your children, you kind of choose the battles, and every battle can't be won and be fought all the time. So you choose them, and what is the most important thing? Because then, like you said, you're going to be finding fault with everything, and that's what ends up happening. So you choose the battles, and there are certain things that you let go, and you say that everything doesn't have to be perfect. Let it be. These things are going to be, but this is not, spilling something or something being a little dirty for a little while is not going to be dangerous. But if you're doing something that is dangerous, that needs to be stopped right at that point. So choose your battles would be a better option in that sense. And another thing that I discovered was that me trying to teach my child or sit when he's doing his schoolwork is the worst thing possible, because that's where the battleground starts. So
really?
that's something I pick myself out of. I'm not equipped to deal with it. I understand that, I accept it, and I don't get into it. So he does his schoolwork the way he wants to do it. He does it with his teachers, because that interaction that I have with him, I realized was only full of stress, and I don't want that stress with him. So you have to let go of a few things and choose the battles. Dr. Shani wrote the foreword for my book, and when I sent it to her, that was the first thing she said. I understand in this digital age, she was fully clued in. She got everything that I was saying, and she was more clued in and more as young as we were. And I was like, Dr. Shani is like so cool about it, and she got everything that we were saying, and that's the whole thing, because she's moving with them. She's seeing all the kids that are coming in.
If I don't do
the
it,
new challenges.
I'll have no attendance in my class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Young is as young thinks, Dr. Shani. Isn't it? All right, is your question answered? Yeah.
There's just a few things that I would say that, it's not like I don't think parenting is collapsing or anything. Basically, parents all want the good for the child. They want. So sometimes the parents themselves were a bit misguided about what the good actually is. So, that is the issue I feel sometimes. Also, the thing is that the challenge today that we face is that we are in a digital age. Like my son told me something which was really, he said, "Oh, Mom, I'm 10 years old, YouTube is as old as me." I said, YouTube has only been around for 10 years, and I am technologically challenged, and yet I'm so used to YouTube. So, suddenly in last 10 years, the whole concept of a lot of things has changed so drastically. For my son, he's not looking up to some musician as a star or a rock star, a hero worshipping just some sports person, but there are YouTubers that they are more keen on. They're not interested in television, they're more interested in the YouTubers, the blogging. So, here are these young 16-year-olds who are millionaires and billionaires, and they are the examples for your child who's watching it. And I have no clue. 10 years back, I had no clue that there would be a profession like this. So honestly, when I'm going to tell my child to do something, I am learning. I keep telling myself I'm learning. I don't know. 10 years ago, this was not there. 10 years later, I don't know what the world is going to be like, what they are going to grow up into. So there are going to be certain things that are never going to change.
And parents will need to evolve with the children.
Values, your roots that are never going to change. So give them the values, give them the roots, because you cannot anticipate what is going to happen 10 years later. Let them have the values and roots which will see them through all that is to come.
No, but this is one big challenge I face with my teachers. You won't believe the battle that I have with my teachers.
होता नहीं है. So in fact जो मैंने किताब लिखी थी, The Modern Gurukul, has been based on the same thing because it's become more and more challenging. So in that sense I think this is a great initiative जहाँ पे at least एक बात तो शुरू हो रही है, conversation शुरू हो रहा है, जहाँ पे एक kind of forum बने, जहाँ पे लोग अपने problems लेके आए, उसके बारे में चर्चा हो, because कोई भी नई चीज़ हो और उसके बारे में जब तक discussion नहीं होगा वो बात को solve नहीं किया जा सकता या उससे आगे नहीं बढ़ा जा सकता. So I think this is a great initiative. And other thing is that it's lovely when corporates take up steps like this. So you know, if you want to do certain activities, you need certain amount of funding. It's a great thing that they are doing this and they're funding it, and we're having a very logical and a very important discussion.
And कैसा experience होता है ऐसे debates attend करने में?
So this was one of my first ones, and it's great because like I said कि ये conversation बहुत ज़रूरी है, ये बातें करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So जब भी ये discussion होता है, हर बार मैं भी कुछ नया सीख के जाती हूँ, कोई और सीख के जाता है, तो ये जो when you meet और जो ये exchange of ideas होता है वो बहुत ज़रूरी है.
And जैसे कि कई बार बच्चे कुछ और करना चाहते हैं लेकिन माँ बाप कुछ और चाहते हैं बच्चों से करना,
जी,
उन्हें फोर्स किया जाता है कुछ और करने के लिए, तो
जी,
उस पर आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
मैं हमेशा कहती हूँ कि एक फाइन लाइन है. डेफिनेटली बच्चों को डायरेक्शन दिखाना ज़रूरी है, लेकिन फोर्स और डायरेक्शन दिखाने में बहुत फ़र्क है और वो फाइन लाइन मेंटेन करना बहुत ज़रूरी है.
उनको मैम फोर्स किया जाता है कि तुम ये मत करो, ऐसा पढ़ाई
नहीं, दैट्स व्हाई आई एम सेइंग कि उनको डायरेक्शन दिखाना कि ये रास्ते आप चूज़ कर सकते हो बहुत ज़रूरी है, लेकिन फोर्स करना डेफिनेटली नॉट.
मैम जैसे कि आपने एक बुक भी आपने लिखी है,
जी.
मॉडल ऑफ गूगल, एंड सेकंड भी आप लिख रहे हैं, उसके बारे में क्या बताना चाहेंगे?
वेल सेकंड के आइडियाज़ हैं और आई थिंक आई नीड टू गेट ऑन टू इट, लेकिन अभी तक टाइम नहीं मिला है. आई विल जब रणवीर की छुट्टियां शुरू हो जाएंगी, आई एम डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू सिट एंड वर्क दैट आउट.
ये जो आपकी सेकंड जो बुक है, ये भी मतलब बच्चों पर ही आधारित है?
आई डोंट नो स्टिल.
एंड आप
वेट एंड वॉच, एंड उसको थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा. आई एम गोइंग टू टेक अ लिटिल ब्रेक एंड देन गो इनटू द बुक.
एंड आप एक शो भी लाने वाले हैं सेकंड, एक बच्चों का एक टॉक शो, उसके बारे में क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
वेल हाउ डू यू गेट टू हियर इट? अभी तक कुछ भी फाइनलाइज नहीं है, सो लेट्स सी हाउ इट गोज. इट डिपेंड्स.
थैंक यू मैम.
थैंक यू.
मैम एक
Yeah.
मैम गुड विशेष चाहिए थी. ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर न्यू शो माइक्रो. हाय सोनाली.